envision being with all the devotees. There's 16 of us here right now on Zoom, and to just out loud to your screen, even if you're not on mute, even if you are on mute, just say thank you to everybody for being here. And let's express our gratitude across the Zoom waves. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Shrimate Radhanath Swami Namane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharni Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarane. I choose my topic to speak about self-awareness for a number of reasons. We'll take a look at a few verses that speak to this, and then we'll examine Arjuna's different levels of self-awareness in the Bhagavad Gita, and then we'll reflect a bit on all of that and open it up for questions. Another word for Krishna consciousness, of course, is self-awareness. Self-consciousness, consciousness itself, and the word conscious really speaks to being alive, awake, feeling, responding, and so on and so forth. And so it's my proposal today that being self-aware as we work on our spiritual life and our spiritual growth is such an important component of making our goal, which is ultimate self-realization and realizing and feeling our relationship with Krishna, feeling that. So the first verse we'll look at, famous verse, Bhagavatam 126, Savai Pumso, Parodharmo, Jato Bhaktir Adhokshaje, Ahaituki Apratihata, Yayatma, Suprasidati. The word suprasidati means completely satisfied. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which man can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Completely satisfy the self. And in the purport, at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, each and every living being has his eternal form in spiritual existence, and Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole, and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served. It is transcendental and it is completely distinct from our experience in material existence. This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses. Everyone should engage himself in that transcendental loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditioned state of material existence. That will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction. I was with somebody recently and they said that when they became a devotee, this verse really struck them. And what mostly struck them in this verse was that this point about we as the soul, as the self, will be completely satisfied. And that was important to Krishna, or that is important to Krishna consciousness, that it's not just about pleasing Krishna, but it's about us being satisfied, being full and complete ourselves. And he said that he just felt that this verse really was an invitation for the individual to be so present in that relationship with Krishna in a very, as Prabhupada says in this purport, a very intimate way, as opposed to, I'm here and God's there and I just worship with some awe and reverence, or perhaps even some fear and some kind of love. So this idea that we will be completely satisfied in serving Krishna. And an extension of that is that only we will know if we are satisfied. When I was growing up, there was a neighbor whom from time to time would come to lunch in my house if his wife was away. He was very tall. My father was in the army, and my father was kind of small and stocky. So this neighbor was very tall and very thin. And so we were all a little bit just kind of in awe of him when he would come and eat with us. And at the end, he would always say, at the end of his meal, he would always say, "I am completely satisfied." And he was so formal about it. But I always remember that and thinking to myself, well, yeah, only we can know when we're satisfied. Nobody can be satisfied for us. And so it's so important for us in this practice, on this gradual path, to be experiencing those moments of satisfaction, to feel them, to capture them, and to continue the search for them. Another verse Prabhupada has, also from the Bhagavatam, was actually the verse before this one, 1:2:5. On the translation, it says, "O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self." So there it is again. And it's the same word you'll read it in the word for word. This is Bhagavatam 1:2:5, if you want to look it up. Supracidity, completely pleased. And in the purport, Prabhupada makes, towards the end of the purport, Prabhupada says this: satisfaction of the soul can only be obtained by questions and answers on the subject of Krishna. So satisfaction of the soul, the awareness of our level of satisfaction, and particularly the satisfaction of the soul, the satisfaction of the body, mind, and soul. So here we're talking about the satisfaction of the soul, which ultimately gives us complete satisfaction. Prabhupada says, all things but Krishna give temporary satisfaction only. So if we are to have complete satisfaction, we must take to the questions and answers about Krishna. We cannot live for a moment without questions and answers that without being questioned or without giving answers, because the Bhagavatam deals with questions and answers that are related to Krishna. We can derive the highest satisfaction only by reading and hearing this transcendental literature. So again, this invitation for each and every one of us to have the highest satisfaction, to experience the highest satisfaction. And only we can know whether we're experiencing it or not. Which brings me to the third verse we're having a look at. This is in same first canto, but fourth chapter, text 27. And this is Vyasadeva, the sage, and he says the following. The translation reads, "Thus the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself, I am feeling incomplete." I'm feeling incomplete comes from the next verse. So he was recognizing his dissatisfaction, and the Sanskrit word for dissatisfaction is nati prasidat. Na, not, and ati prasidat, very much satisfied. So as much as we can feel satisfied, we also have to recognize when we're not satisfied, which the sage did. And the purport Prabhupada says, the sage began to search out the cause of not being satisfied at heart. Perfection is never attained until one is satisfied at heart. This satisfaction of the heart has to be searched out beyond matter. Perfection is never attained until one is satisfied in the heart. And this satisfaction of heart has to be searched out beyond matter. So that's like the crux of our quest, our spiritual quest. And it's as much about satisfying Krishna, which is our process of pleasing and satisfying Krishna, as it is recognizing our own levels of satisfaction and dissatisfaction within as we are in that process. So if we take a look at Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna, the big moment for Arjuna in the Gita was when he asked Krishna to take him into the middle of the battlefield and that he could see both armies. And how interesting is when he went into that middle space, right? That space where all of a sudden he had perspective and he was faced with all kinds of a sense of foreboding, a sense of what's ahead. He really had that crisis moment. He became very aware. And he had this huge self-awareness, right? He became very aware of so many things, aware of what responsibility lay ahead of him, aware of what consequences, potential consequences, aware about the fact that he actually had to face and kill his family members. And so very often in our life, we're going along a little unconscious until something happens, some kind of pain generally, which forces us into a level of awareness that we didn't have before. So Arjuna, as he was going through all of this and questioning Krishna right there, why do I have to do this? And if I do this, this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen. And then he became very aware of his fears in his body. His body was sweating, his hairs were standing on end. If you read the Gita, those verses are very descriptive of how Arjuna really felt his whole body falling apart. So very often our body will tell us things. The first level of awareness is often in our body. When we're teaching children child safety, we will tell them to trust. They may often feel that they're in danger if their heart is pounding, if they start sweating, if their stomach, they're feeling it in their stomach. And so even if somebody is telling them, an adult is telling them things that intellectually makes it like, you're safe, you're fine, you know, I'm here. But if the child is feeling threatened and feels it in his body, we will tell the child, you know, trust your body, because your body will tell you things. So Arjuna felt his fear, his anxiousness, his potential failure in his body. So that was his first level of self-awareness. And then he moved on to an awareness of, he realized he needed help. And so that's a really good thing when we are feeling in trouble or broken or somehow struggling. And then we come to the awareness that actually I need help. Very often we're not able to ask for help. It's too hard, or it's just a sign of weakness. But Arjuna realized at that point that he needed help. And when he asked Krishna, now I'm going to be a soul surrendered unto you. I need you to advise me. I need help. So that was a level of awareness Arjuna went into. He asked Krishna. And then in the course of the book, there's so many levels of awareness Arjuna goes through, and I'm only focusing on a few of them. But he at one point, he becomes aware of Krishna, who is Krishna, and not just his friend that he has known for a long time, but that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he actually becomes a little bit embarrassed when he says, you know, I used to just hang out with you and then treat you as an ordinary person, and you're not. So another awareness of Arjuna. He became aware of the Virat Rupa, the universal form, and within that awareness, he became aware of how he became overwhelmed, and he couldn't look at it anymore. He became aware of how just vast and awesome it was. Towards the end of the Gita, he was very aware that Krishna was giving him a choice, and they had to make the choice. And that Krishna said to him, listen, I've told you everything. Now it is your choice. You decide what to do. And awareness, and this is an important awareness in our own life in general, that it's always our choice. From the very beginning, Krishna has given us a choice. From the very moment we entered into these material bodies, the choice has always been ours. In fact, as a soul, we always have that independence, that choice as in desire. So Arjuna was aware that it was his choice ultimately to fight or to move away, as he had originally wanted to do. And he also became aware, as he told Krishna, that I know what to do now. I'm clear. My mind is clear. I have understood. I will fight. So those were some of the moments of awareness that Arjuna experienced in his time on the battlefield, or in his time when Krishna was speaking the Bhagavad Gita. So for us, in our lives, there's a few lessons to take from that. And one is that we will, as we move through life, and as we're trying to reconnect with Krishna, and as we're trying to take up this practice of bhakti, this spiritual practice, we will experience, and we should experience, awareness on the body, on the soul, on the mind, and then on the soul. The body is an important, body, mind, and soul, ultimately we need to work together. The Gita also says, yes, your mind is your enemy and your mind is your friend. And we as devotees need to continually make the mind our friend and have the mind work with us. So awareness of the body, our body will have aches and pains. It will hold tensions. It will hold fears. It will do all kinds of things. A lot of times we can ignore it. A lot of times we can, it will bounce back. But there are points in our life where we know our body's telling us something and we have to listen. And so sometimes we put on a brave face. Sometimes we just keep going because we know we have to, or we should. But self-awareness takes an actual kind of radical self-honesty. Because again, only you are aware of you. Of course, Krishna in the heart is there with you, but in terms of anybody else, only you are aware of you. And so when things show up in our body, it can help us get a sense of the situation. It can help us make the right choice in a situation. It can help us have reasonable fears of a situation. And it can ultimately help us prompt us to have somebody to talk to about it. And this is not, Prabhupada said most of our illnesses come from anxiety, from mental anxiety. So it's not just about talking to a doctor and getting help for our body, but it's also noticing how our body responds in different ways to different situations. And just learning through chanting and through reading the Bhagavatam, how we can keep moving forward, basically, work with it and know how to make the adjustments in our life. Adapting is a super important skill for self-realization as well, and for self-awareness, because when our body is speaking to us, then we can see how we have to adjust things. Awareness in our mind, which is very much connected to our emotions. Of course, we live so much of our life in our minds. Mark Twain said famously one time something like, I've suffered so much in my life and nothing ever happened to me, because it's all in the mind, either the anxiety for the future or lamentation for the past. So becoming very self-aware of what kind of mind we have, how our internal language is, how we talk to ourselves, how we process things. And again, the awareness of, when do I need to talk to another person? When do I need to write this out? When do I need to go for a walk? When do I need to process this, to move it through our system? we know, and those who work in the medical field know, that very often trauma gets caught in the body, and emotions get stuck in our system, and emotions get stuck in our mind. So part of the process of Krishna consciousness is mantra med, which really means mantra. Man is the mind, and tra is to free. So if we chant well, and if we chant with attention, again, the awareness that we're putting into our chanting, then that not only cleanses and frees the mind from a lot of our anxieties, but that leads us into the third level of awareness, which is awareness of the soul, which Krishna told us, and Prabhupada told us, that the satisfaction of the self. So it's the third self, like the body is the first self, the mental, subtle self of the mind and intelligence, and then the total real self in there. The mantra nourishes that directly. Reading the Bhagavatam nourishes that directly. Questions and answers about Krishna nourish that directly. And so that self-awareness, that satisfaction, that deep, deep internal satisfaction, that's what we're looking to feel, to touch, to practice. And very often our life will get busy, so much time on the body, so much time on the mind, and then we have not so much time for our soul practice, the practice that really actually gives us that satisfaction of the self. And so we have to become aware of how we divide our time, how we divide our life, and aware how we need to daily, nurture or nourish or feed or support the satisfaction of the self, because that's the root. And if we can satisfy the self by good chanting and good hearing and good conversations with other devotees about Krishna, or good ways to share Krishna with others, that's directly touching the self. It's like that ray of light passes the body, passes the mind, and just hits directly into the heart of the heart, which is the soul, which is us. So those are the three areas of self-awareness that if we can tune into them when we need to, tune out of them when we don't need to. For example, when we're chanting, it is really not the time to be worrying about the body, or going on mental walks. But if we can become very conscious about all these different parts of our life, and put them together in good ways, and then take them apart in good ways, then we clear through the body and the mind, and we clear, and we're able to enter that soul space where we will ultimately need to feel that satisfaction of really genuinely feeling the presence of Krishna, or connecting with Krishna, and feeling a shift, an internal shift within ourselves. That gives us a little taste of an extraordinary experience of satisfaction that has nothing to compare with in this world. I want to just give you one more beautiful excerpt from the preface of the Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada says, "Missing Krishna means missing oneself also." Did we ever think that we had missed ourself? I'm missing myself. So Prabhupada tells us, missing Krishna, when we talk about we're missing Krishna in our life, we're calling for Krishna, we're lonely for Krishna, that's the relationship we don't have. Prabhupada says missing Krishna means missing oneself also. Real self-realization, realization of Krishna, real self-realization and realization of Krishna go together simultaneously. For example, he says, seeing oneself in the morning means seeing the sunrise also. Without seeing the sunshine, no one can see himself. Similarly, unless one has realized Krishna, there is no question of self-realization or self-awareness. So you can try this tonight when it's really dark. You cannot see yourself. So we cannot see ourselves, we cannot find ourselves until we turn on that light, and that light is Krishna in our life. But as long as we're seeing and looking for that light of Krishna, we're also becoming more conscious of ourself. And Prabhupada says that is as important. Real self-realization and realization of Krishna go together simultaneously. All right, we'll stop here and open up if anybody has any comments or who would like to ask the first question. You can also put questions in the chat.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. This is Chatamai Devi Dasi. Thanking you for a wonderful class. I had a question about one of the comments at the beginning of the class, which is that Krishna is the supreme attractive.
Uh-huh.
So if he is the supreme attractive, what was it that caused us to turn away from him, thinking that there was something even better?
That's a really nice question. And I think any sincere seeker of Krishna will ask that question. How did I ever turn away from this most attractive and the one whom I can feel most satisfied with? But we do it because we have independence and we have choice. And the Shastra says we were also a bit envious of Krishna, that we thought, well, maybe, I can enjoy like that, or I can be the big controller. So you can't have love if you don't have freedom, if you don't have choice, if you don't have independence. So that's one of the qualities of the soul. We're simultaneously one with and different from Krishna. And that's the sweetness of the relationship when we turn back to that. So we hold that radical honesty as yes, I chose to go away. I still can't quite figure out why. It doesn't make any sense to me. But according to the teachings, I did it because I could. And I did it because I had some envy. And feeling foolish and feeling not good about that is a nice, is a good impetus to start our life, because we're beginning to feel, how could I be so hurtful, right? How could I do that to someone who's so beautiful? How could I be such a fool?
That's a wonderful answer. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Well, thank you so much for your wonderful class. I always like your blog as well, reading your blogs as well. They're so good. Honestly, I must admit, it's been a while that I read, but whenever I read it, they're like amazing. I have a question, and it is like, I often I'm puzzled by, the Krishna's, when Krishna says Dukkha Shashvatam, what is how we try to look at positivity in life, and trying to see Krishna and everything, especially reading the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But then and then you're talking about self-awareness, and I like, how do we tie in this, like a self-awareness where I'm aware of the fact that it is the kalma shashtam, but at the same time I'm like seeing life, the light of positivity, where everything is it's Krishna's divine energy, and not just about the the nature around us, but just about the people we deal with. Like, outside of also being self-aware, my next level is like to be aware of people around us, like how to reconcile these two every time.
So how to know that the world is a miserable place, and at the same time see and experience how there's so much love and beauty and all kinds of good things in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they say that a mature person can hold opposites in their mind, right? And so, that's the dichotomy of life. It is Krishna's energy, and it's beautiful because it's Krishna's energy, and yet it's designed to be a place of ultimate suffering and misery. We may not suffer so much in our life personally, but then we suffer when we see other people suffer. There's just pain everywhere, right? And yet you go out and you see a sunrise, or you have a beautiful exchange with somebody, or you go to the temple and see Krishna, and you have so much beauty and goodness. So I think it's I would say it's part of a spiritual practitioner's, and it's part of a yogi's job to be able to see both, right? Because it's too hard to function in a world, that that's too miserable. Happiness and distress will come and go, Krishna says. We have to learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. What is not ultimately disturbed is our trust that Krishna, this is Krishna's, and this is all Krishna's arrangement, right? So, and part of the arrangement is the soul is going through this journey of this body that's destined to suffer birth, death, disease, and old age. And so we hold that, and we deal with it depending on when it comes in our life, whether it's a disease that we're having, say, and suffering, or somebody else is having. So part of our job is both to be involved and feel everything, and part of our job is to step back and understand everything from a kind of philosophical platform. So, and I think we kind of go in and out of that naturally. And part of our job of self-awareness is to watch ourselves, how we do that. We can be too withdrawn and then not feel any emotion, which is not good, because our relationship with Krishna is full of emotion, right? And yet we can be too involved and too emotional and too overwhelmed. And that's not good either, because then we think it's all about us and it's not really about a bigger picture. So depending on the situation of the moment, whether it's a moment of joy, and I have learned to see those are moments of like sunshine, nourishing, right? We need joy, we need appreciation, we need love, we need all the goodness energy, the mode of goodness energy, the beauty and the cleanliness and the spiritual practice. We need all of those. And we read Krishna book and we feel joy. But we also we don't wake up in the morning and think, okay, I'm going to suffer today because that's going to be on my schedule, right? But we will get it, whether it's from another person or whether it's from the weather or it's whether our own body, that material miseries will come. But we have to have enough joy. And that's why this Kevalananda Kanda, this Krishna consciousness, right? This path of joy. The fact is, if you wake up the soul, if you have that awareness of your true self, you can feel that joy even when you have to go through those moments of suffering, or when you have to step back and philosophically say to yourself, hey, I am in this material world. It is a place of death. It is a temporary place. I'm not meant to be here. I'm meant to fly off, as Prabhupada says, to be the free bird eventually. So it's a matter of learning to live our philosophy, learning to live the teachings, learning to recognize, oh yeah, now I'm feeling joy. Yeah, now I'm anxious. Yeah, now I'm at peace. Yeah, now I'm so many things. Sometimes when we're doing service, we're more anxious than, we're nice and peaceful sitting and chanting our rounds, and then we go do service, and because of the situation, there's all kinds of anxiety, right? But it's also the awareness needed to bring it back to Krishna, to hold on to him. Probably the best self-awareness mantra is when Krishna says, remember me and fight, in the Bhagavad Gita. Anusmaran, right? He tells Arjuna, okay, be a yogi, remember me and fight. So we remember Krishna, and then we interact with life. And it's this reminding ourselves. And self-awareness is all about reflecting, reminding ourselves, saying, oh, okay, I went too far on that one, I got to bring it back. Or, oh, I'm noticing some envy in myself about that person. Or we're regretting something, or we're feeling afraid. So part of a spiritual practice is to be able to see all of these emotions in relation to Krishna, right? And it's about really being honest with what's going on internally, even though externally we may not need to express it, or it may appear that we're all rosy externally, but internally we have to do that balance of nurturing ourselves with the joy of Krishna Bhakti, and also helping ourselves cope with and understand just the actual real nature of this world, and the urgency that's upon us to actually not forget that, and to ultimately at the time of death remember Krishna. So it's a balancing act. Yeah. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you so much. It did. Yes, thank you. That was really, really nice. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Pranam.
There you go.
Thank you very much for the very wonderful class. I have two small questions, Mataji. What I see from my point, I'm just talking about myself. What I see is because the reason why people are unable to take the Krishna consciousness seriously is one thing is we hear from Prabhupada that there is a spiritual world where Lord Krishna resides, and it's very beautiful, and we will be happy. But that I see that that convention is not very strong. So that's why anyone is unable to progress in our spiritual life. So how to have that strong conviction that there is a spiritual world, and where it's full of happiness, and we'll be happy. That's the first question. And second question is we are an insignificant person, and even though we have small realizations in our life where Krishna reciprocates, but how we can see that even though we are insignificant, Krishna really cares about us. So how do we know that? So these two, can you please explain, Mataji, so that we'll be very serious in the Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, sometimes it seems the spiritual world is very far away, right? And that,
Yes.
We're trying to, tolerate here because you're going to be happy over there. But for a lot of people, and it's true, and we read Krishna book and all of that, but we've been sold that message on many levels in our life. Get this job, you'll be happy. This idea of the grass is greener on the other side. And sometimes we get cynical. You buy this, you'll be happy. You do this. So the future is always promising happiness. So, perhaps we're thinking, yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to work out for us in the spiritual world. But probably, a better way is, I think, and here's another way that self-awareness comes into it, is to just try to help people understand that, be present now. Look for finding Krishna everywhere. We know that Krishna consciousness means being conscious of Krishna. When I talk about self-awareness, it doesn't mean, okay, now we stop thinking about Krishna and we're only thinking about ourselves. So, daily and forgetting about the spiritual world and, the end destination, but better to work on just how can I really find Krishna now, at this moment, at this day, at part of this day. how can I be present just one mantra? How can I go to the temple and really, stand in front of the deities and feel, look for joy, feel some happiness. So I would say that again, part of this self-awareness is, if I'm not practicing so well, if I'm feeling a bit dry, if my spiritual life is not so alive, I have to do something about it. It was like Sage Vyasadeva. He said, I'm not feeling satisfied. What's the problem? Narada Muni came along and said, you're not talking enough about Krishna. You have to write more directly about Krishna. So if we're not feeling like, that far distant land of Krishna Loka is real for us, it means we have to make it more real, closer to home, and really find shelter in service, find what makes us, gives us joy, find a service we love to do, because if you love to do a service, you'll do it really well for Krishna. And practice being satisfied with Krishna, practice bringing the mind back to Krishna. Spiritual life is work, it's not just, hey, I've done a few rounds and at the end of my life, go back to, that rosy place in the sky. It's not that at all. You really have to work at it, and you have to work at being conscious and being intentional about how you're living your life in connection to Krishna. And everybody has to find their tree. And I say that in reference to Sita Devi, when she was locked away for a year, waiting for Ram to rescue her. And she was under the Ashoka tree down at Ravana's kingdom. She was under the tree. She sat there patiently and waited. So everybody has to find what gives them life in Krishna consciousness. Maybe it's a particular book, maybe it's somebody they're listening to, what can help them, what can help me get up and get my enthusiasm revved up. What service can I commit to at the temple? Does, washing pots for an hour a week give me great joy? Does calling people give me great joy? So, happiness, we have to, it's, I would say, be here now, because it's not that, we're eternal. We live forever, and it's not like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be miserable now, and then maybe over there I'm going to be happy. No, it's now. And we have to draw that out of ourself in relationship to Krishna. No matter where we are on the path, whether we're chanting 1 round or 10 rounds or 16 rounds or 32 rounds, and we need to have Sangha, we need to have service, we need to have, and we really need to, and if you have Sangha and if you have service and you're hearing, when you get to your rounds, it will help you really have this very personal relationship with Krishna when you're chanting your japa, which is what it's all about. It's just you and the Lord, you and the holy name, which is not different from the Lord. So that's the answer I would give to your first question. And I can't remember your second question about insignificance.
As we're insignificance, but still, how do you know that Krishna really cares? So even though in our life we see a little bit reciprocations, sometimes we feel that no, we are insignificant. How Krishna can reciprocate, or he really cares about us. So like when you know that Lord really cares for us, then we will take one step further. So how to have that? How do we feel that?
How to know that the Lord really cares?
He really cares for us. Yes, exactly.
I would, bring it back again to that self-awareness, and if you become more conscious of how Krishna cares for you, I think this question invites us into an attitude of gratitude. That because when we're grateful, we see how many things Krishna has given us, how many things we have, how many things we're able to do. We're grateful for things, teachers of the past. We're grateful for the invitation that Krishna has given us to enter into a relationship with him. So we are insignificant. I was listening to a class today about, it was a description of the universe, and the person who was giving it, this devotee, PhD devotee, he was saying, yes, this understanding and talking about the fifth canto in the universe can make you feel really insignificant, because we are really insignificant. But he says it can also make you feel really good. So it's the practice of depending on Krishna, right? Sarvadharma, Krishna says, depend on me, I will protect you, do not fear. And we have to, again, just notice how Krishna is protecting us in so many ways. And we know theoretically, we know theologically, we know philosophically, we read it in our books over and over again. Krishna's our friend, Krishna's our father, Krishna's the source of our life. Krishna will protect us. Prabhupada tells us that over and over again. He says, Krishna says, don't fear, lean on me, I will protect you, do not fear, take shelter of me. So we know it in our heads, and now we have to do it we have to actually do it. We have to live it, we have to feel it. And we do that in small ways every day, in those magic moments, in those moments of synchronicity, in those moments where we take risk, and those moments we're uncertain. Life is uncertain. We're not the controllers. We do our best, and then we leave the rest up to Krishna. And we see time and time again that Krishna does take care of us. And again, having this practice of awareness, which means reflecting on your day or thinking, let me remember 5 wonderful things. What was a highlight of my day? Where, what time, or when in my day today did I feel Krishna? Did I see Krishna? Did I sense Krishna? Did I remember Krishna? And talk about that with your family. Talk about that in Sangha. Write it down. Have a journal. Awareness means consciousness. And consciousness means being awake. And being awake means, okay, I'm noticing things. I'm seeing things. I'm feeling things. I'm putting 2 and 2 together. I'm connecting the dots. I'm seeing Krishna here. I'm seeing Krishna there. So it's Krishna consciousness is a very active practice. It's not a passive thing. It's not like we just pour in a mantra and then it all magically happens. We don't have to do anything. We have to dive in the swimming pool. It's like there's a swimming pool, right? You can't swim in them these days because of COVID. But if you were at a swimming pool and you had to get to the other side of the swimming pool, from one end of the long swimming pool to the other, well, you could walk all the way around on the edge, and eventually get there, maybe some distractions along the way, or you dive in and you swim to the other end. And Krishna consciousness is the practice of diving into this material world with Krishna in your heart, with the devotees in your life, with the books and the mantra, and you swim in this world using everything for Krishna service, connecting everything to Krishna. And you get to that other end, and you're full of life, and you're full of joy, and you're full of maturity, and you're full of grace, and you're full of generosity, and you're full of forgiveness. You're full of all, and you're full of just not letting life, Maya just take you down, roads of negativity or criticism or, tension and anxiety. You just connect everything to Krishna, and then you'll feel Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Very nice answer. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think we're almost out of time. We've just got a few minutes left. And I like to end classes by asking 5 people to share one thing they found useful or helpful, or that they, struck them in what we talked about today.
Hi, Mataji. Haribo, thank you for speaking. I loved your analogy of turning the light on, like in order to see yourself. That with, I understand it's from Prabhupada, but when you turned it, acknowledging that, yeah, we have technology and light switches and we can, in fact, in the middle of the night, go and see ourselves in the mirror. But
Right.
the idea that regardless of the source, like it's always Krishna, and that without that light, like what we see of ourselves is just darkness, like it's nothing. So I loved that, and I'm really going to, I don't know, look for more of that, and yeah, I really connected to it. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Wonderful. Who else? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Something that really struck me, like, you know, it was a later part of the class when you were answering the question.
Maybe turn your video off and just
It
speak.
comes off really easily, like
Your
Haripol. Is it audible?
now, yeah, try now because it wasn't.
Is it audible now?
Yes.
Okay. Something that really struck me was where you said that, you know, Krishna consciousness is a serious work. Like it's not something that, you know, it's not just about chanting mantras and, you know, reading a few books and I'm done. Like, no, it's about real serious work. Like I could associate it. Like there are so many times when I get involved in work and I'm so much to it. Like, so I could really associate with those words that, yes, I mean, it's a serious work. And yeah, that was something very important for me personally.
Thank you. Thank you. The work. Okay, we just have 3 more. If you can just share with a sentence or two, something you learned.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I really like the way you said how we should lead in our life. You said that we should keep Krishna in our heart, and we should keep devotees around us, and we should fight Maya, and we should do our things sincerely.
Nice.
And you said, thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, it's Chaitanya Bhagavatas. That remembering is an everyday thing. It's not just when you're in a crisis or something happens, but it's something when you wake up every day. It's something you do.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And just one more.
Hare Krishna. I like what you said regarding the situation where you have an outer voice and then there's the inside of you, your body specifically. Which voice do you listen to? You listen to your body.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Learning to trust and learning to, trust our intuition and trust ourselves and trust that Krishna is guiding us. Thank you. Thank you all so much. It was a joy being here. And
thank you, Ananda Mataji. Thank you. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate for taking out time to be online with ISKCON Boston. Very grateful to you. We might trouble you sometime in the future as well. But thank you once again, dear mother. On behalf of entire ISKCON Boston, I would like to express deepest gratitude to you. And thank you, devotees, for joining us online today for our Sunday feast. So very shortly, we'll have a kirtan now. Thank
Jai
you.
ISKCON Boston. Jai all the devotees in ISKCON Boston. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Thank you. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Gauravani Pracharihe Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashatyarishatarini